In today's video, we will be taking an unboxing and an overview of the ionz Pro Gamer KZ05 V2. And I got it first time. Well, I didn't actually, I got it second time, but anyway. I got it on take two. Anyway, so yes, this is the KZ05 V2. A bit of a mouthful, but looks a pretty decent case to me. It has the front mesh, it's an ATX case. Front mesh for ARGB fans, or at least I hope they are ARGB. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it does say ARGB on them. And obviously the PSU shroud at the bottom, and tempered glass, and just I think just generally it looks quite good. And I only paid £45 for this on Amazon.co.uk, so yeah, looking forward to this little budget case to see what this is like. So without further ado, let's crack on. And so here it is, guys, the KZ05 V2. Now, as I said, this is £45 on Amazon and looks a pretty decent ATX case for you flippers out there. And also, if you want to build up your own PC and you're looking at a very budget case, then I think also this is a consideration as well. So if you haven't seen my sort of case unboxings and overview videos, basically they are a little bit long at times, but we do go over everything, and it covers everything for the case, so I think it'll be fine. So yeah, as I said, we go to the front, the top, the rear panel side, the underside of the case, the rear panel here, so we'll see the cable management, and then obviously the front here with the front glass. We'll do that last. So overall, I do think this looks a nice little case, and let's get into it. So here we go with the three 120mm fans at the front. Hopefully you can see that through the mesh there. I will put in some B-roll just so you can actually see the fans as well once I've actually got the PC built, and then I'll be able to show you that. But hopefully that will come, but we'll see. So yeah, the three 120mm fans at the front, and I'm pretty sure this front panel actually just pulls out, so I think we'll just get that out for you so you can see them. Jeez. So here we go with the three fans at the front there. Nice little RGB fans. And I will put some B-roll just to show you them what they look like. But they're just your sort of standard RGB fans, so nothing really much to see there. And these fans are all on the outside as well, although you can move them to the inside if you really wanted to, but I would suggest you keep them on the outside, because then you're going to lose clearance for your graphics card, obviously, if you put them inside, so just be wary of that. Now, in terms of radiator support, you can have up to a 360mm radiator, I believe. But I think you can also have 240s as well. But I do think the, yeah, there's no support for 140 fans at the front. So you're either going to have a 240 or a 360. So yeah, you're going to have a 240mm or a 360mm radiator at the front if you do that. But again, if you do have the radiator at the front, you are going to lose a little bit of extra clearance for your graphics card. But we'll get onto that right at the very end, the clearance of the graphics card and what have you. But overall, yeah, I think that's a nice little setup. I mean, support for 140s would have been nicer as well, but then you would have probably a slightly bigger case. And this is actually a fairly compact case, actually. It's not particularly big, especially for an ATX case. But yeah, let's get to the top now. So moving to the top, and we do have a magnetic dust filter, which is nice to see. And at the front, at the top, we have support for two 120mm fans or two 140mm fans. Now, having a look, it doesn't actually say on the box, but I'll put it below if there is any radiator support for the top. But having a look inside the case, the top does look very, very near to where the motherboard is. So I'd be very, very careful on that. If there is any support for radiators, I kind of think it's probably not going to be good to put a radiator at the top there. So I'd probably say that's out. But obviously you can fit in your standard 120mm fans, two of them, or your 140mm fans, two of them as well. Or you could even do one 120 and one 140 if you want to be a bit like that, but anyway, look a bit odd, but yeah. And then moving to our I/O at the top, and again, it's good to see that the I/O's at the top here, because otherwise if you have it on the front, I always find it kind of comes with those cables and it gets messy, the front. So having it at the top is kind of nice because it's not with your actual front panel. Starting left to right, or yeah, I think it's left to right, you'll see we got a big clicky power button. That's nice. A reset button, and then next to that we have a USB 2 port with the microphone and headphone jacks, so they're not combined, they're separate, which is nice. And then a second USB 2 port as well, and then finally a USB 3 port as well. So not fantastic with the USB support there. I would have liked to just seen 2 USB 3 ports, but it's a budget case and there's going to have to be setbacks and kind of things that kind of, you know, where they cut back on just to get the cost right. And there's no USB-C support either, but again, I don't think that's a major thing for a lot of people. And then I believe right at the very end, yeah, right at the very end there's an LED button, so you can cycle through your LEDs. For your case fans at the front, that will control the 3 at the front and the 1 at the back. Now I don't know if there's any kind of hub here so you can add any additional fans. I think it is an enclosed system, so you only have the ARGB fans which are supported by this case. So just be aware of that, but we'll get to that when we get to the back, but I don't think there is. So moving to the rear I/O of the case, as you can see we have support for the 120mm fan at the back, and there's one pre-installed for you, which is the ARGB fan. As I said, 3 at the front, 1 at the back. No 140mm support here, but obviously that's to be expected. Again, for this price point, you can't expect too much. You've got to have, you know, you've got to have your expectations, you know, in the right place, because otherwise it's just not going to work. So yeah, obviously our I/O cutout for your motherboard, pretty standard. We do have the 7 ATX PCI slots, so this is where your graphics cards will go. And yeah, they are all the snap-off type ones as well, the one-use snap-off ones. But again, there's got to be cutbacks to get into this £45 price bracket. You're not going to get all the niceties like blanking shields for your pre-installed blanking shields for your PCI brackets. And it does come up with one of those sort of like pull things out like that, which is okay, but I don't love these things. But they're pretty much standard with every case now. And then we just have our PSU cutout, where you can only put the fan down, you can't put the fan up. So there's only one set of like holes there, so it has to go fan down, just so you know. So pretty much standard again with this case. Everything's kind of quite standard. Certainly nowadays, cases have got to the point now where everything's basically standard, and whatever case you kind of get, it's kind of pretty much working on the same sort of standard, unless there's very kind of outliers, where there are a few outliers where you have completely different sort of setups, but most cases are pretty much on that sort of default layout now, which you see. But yeah, anyway, moving on to the very bottom of the case, we do have some very good feet here as well, some rubberized feet, so that shouldn't scratch on your desk too much either. And they're probably a good 2 centimeters or maybe an inch off the ground, so it's going to give your power supply plenty of room. And for the power supply, there is actually a little mesh filter, one of those really fiddly ones to get out, not removable outside here, so you will have to turn your case upside down to actually get it out. Bit annoying, but again, most people aren't really going to even touch this, so not really a problem in my book. And again, for a budget case, I'm willing to kind of put up with 1 or 2 things which you have to kind of cut back on to get to that price point. Because like I say, £45 is not a lot of money, especially nowadays, and to get the 4 pre-installed ARGB fans with the tempered glass and with the PSU shroud, that's not a bad deal, especially for an ATX case. And then we do have a hard drive bracket here, which is removable by these 2 screws, and we'll get onto that a bit later as well. So as we know, and as we've looked at on this channel a lot, cable management is the big issue when it comes to budget cases. And looking at the pictures, I was a little bit concerned before I brought this case of whether the cable management would be good enough. And that was the only thing kind of putting me off not buying this before. But let's have a look anyway and just see if it is If it's that bad, it's that bad, but it is what it is. Let's have a look. Okay, so a little bag of all your screws and everything here. Let's just take that down first. So you get a couple of cable ties and obviously all your screws. So that's obviously not bad. Nothing else. Doesn't look like any manual or anything with this either. I can't see one in the box. So if you're a first time builder, that might be a little bit off-putting not seeing a manual. But anyway, talking about the cable management now. And actually, to be fair, looking at it here, that I can see, it actually looks quite usable, and I think it's actually all right. There isn't much. I probably would say you've got about 2 centimeters there, maybe even a little bit less. You've certainly got less than an inch there. You've certainly got less than an inch there, but you've probably got about 2 centimeters, so you should be all right there. And the good thing is as well at the side here is that this actual cable management sort of path actually pulls into the case, which gives you about I'd say another centimetre of room there. So I reckon you probably have got a full inch on this side, on this cable channel down here. But round here you haven't got too much. So you just have to be a little bit careful with your EPS cable and how you're routing that, and any other kind of cables that you're keeping here. But you probably won't keep much here, so it's not probably a problem really. As you can see, there actually isn't any hub, which I was kind of thinking there wasn't going to be a hub, so I was right in that sense. And let's just have a look, see how this all, yeah, okay. I can see where this kind of connects in now. Okay, I found it. There's a SATA cable here, which connects obviously all your fans up to your power. So that's a SATA power cable, which you'll need. So you'll need that from your power supply to actually power up your fans. And there is actually an ARGB connection on these fans. I think there might be 4 individual ARGB connections looking at it, but I'll have a look. No, okay, so in actual fact, the back fan connects into an ARGB connector. If you can see that, there's an ARGB, which is a 3-pin 5-volt connector to connect into your motherboard header, your ARGB motherboard header, or your J Rainbow, I think it's called on MSI board, sorry. So that looks like that will control the addressable ARGB, which is actually quite nice. So it's all in one system. But obviously, if you are going to add fans to this, you are going to need like a separate controller box or something to actually add those fans. So just please be aware of that. If you are thinking of maybe going with a CPU tower cooler that has ARGB independently, you probably won't be able to connect that to your current system case fans, and so it'll be 2 different systems that you might have to work off. So just be aware of that. It doesn't have a separate hub, so you can't integrate it all together, which is a little bit of a downside. But I think for most people, they're probably just going to go with the 4 ARGB fans pre-installed and just leave it at that. Onto the actual front cables, the front header cables. We have a USB 3 connector here. Pretty standard. This is all pretty standard stuff. We'd have a HD audio connector, which is actually fully blacked out as well. So if you can see that, fully blacked out, which is nice to see. A USB 2 connector for your 2 USB 2 ports at the front there. And then we have those 4 little dangly, really annoying connectors for your power switch, your power LED, your hard drive LED, and your reset button. So again, all pretty much standard layout here, pretty much standard things. Nothing really to talk too much about there. In terms of the cable routing, there is actually quite a lot of cable routing sort of channels and tiebacks. So you can actually tie back quite a bit there, if you can see that hopefully on the camera. And there's quite a bit of tiebacks on this side. This is your main sort of cable channel that I'd be using for most of my cables. This is kind of where you're looking at, I would say. But anyway, coming down to the bottom, the PSU shroud, there is a couple of rubber grommet bits there which will actually sit your power supply on, so that's actually quite nice to see, just to give your power supply a little bit extra breathing space from the bottom there. And we do have that hard drive caddy, which from what I can see will house one 3.5-inch drive or one 2.5-inch drive as well. You possibly might get two 3.5-inch drives. I'll put exactly what it is below, but just be aware that there isn't any additional caddies, like you do with most cases nowadays, they come with caddies at the back here, so you can mount 2.5-inch drives. But be aware that isn't the case with this one. But you could stick one of your like 2.5-inch SSDs onto the back, and that would work as well. So just be aware of that. But again, to remove the caddy, it's quite simple, but I won't do it right now. But there's just 2 screws there, and then it just comes out, so you can put on your SSDs and your hard drives and everything. I believe it is only 2 drives at the bottom there, but you potentially could get more. And I think you can actually get an SSD at the bottom if you want to take out the actual caddy. But I think for most people, they'll probably just put a 2.5-inch drive on the top there for your SSD, and then just tuck in all your additional cables will just be tucked under there, which is probably what I'm going to do anyway. So overall, I'm actually quite happy with the back. That's not too bad, not as bad as it looked in the pictures anyway, so that's okay. Now, the front glass is one of those kind of very old school implementations, which I don't really like, which is the 4 thumb screw thing, and then it lifts off. I prefer the sliding glass off, where there's 2 screws at the bottom, 2 screws at the side, and then you undo those 2, and then the glass slides off, which is a lot cleaner and better system in my opinion. But this old school way does work, so not too much of a problem. And that glass is really heavy. I don't know if you can, well, obviously you're not going to be able to feel it on the camera, but that glass is proper heavy. So you've got a really good, you've got a really good tempered glass there. So that's obviously great to see as well. I think the camera might be playing up a little bit, but we've just got to carry on. So hopefully this comes out okay. So the PSU shroud here, pretty standard. It has got one of those annoying cutout windows. I don't like this, but it is what it is. You potentially could get some more additional fans at the bottom here. I'm not 100% sure, but I think you probably can. But the PSU shroud's just sort of the standard thing nowadays, and that's fine. It works. Some decent cutouts here. The 2 at the bottom. 2 big ones at the side here, which is where your main cables are going to go, and then there is the one for the EPS at the top there, so that's nice to see, as well as the big large cutout for your CPU heatsink fans and all that sort of stuff. So you can sort that out if you've got your motherboard in there already and you want to swap a cooler or something like that, that's fine. Pre-installed standoffs are for the ATX form factor, and there's 6 of them there, but there is a few more in the bag. So you can use those additional ones if you need to, but 6 was probably going to be okay for most people. Those important numbers, which probably most of you are waiting for, the CPU height for your maximum cooler height is 160 millimeters, and your GPU maximum length is 340 millimeters, so about 13 inches there. So that's pretty much any single graphics card on the market. I don't think there's many more bigger than 340 millimeters. Maybe there might be 1 or 2, but I think that's going to be fine. But just be aware as well is that if you are going to use a radiator, you're probably down to about 320 or even 310 if you do use a radiator at the front here, because you are going to lose that little extra space there. And obviously, going back to the point which I said before, this is an ATX case, so you get full ATX support. But again, you can use a micro ATX board as well, or if you really wanted to, you could go ITX, but I really would suggest you don't, because that's going to look really bad in this case, because the board's going to be totally tiny and it's not going to look great. Even micro ATX, to be honest, try and keep away from it. I would just go with a micro ATX case if you've got a micro ATX board, but you know, it can be done, and it doesn't look too bad. So micro ATX is the absolute smallest I would go. Certainly ITX I wouldn't go with, but you can, but I wouldn't. Ideally, obviously, in an ATX case, you do go with a full ATX motherboard because it looks far better. And yeah, I think overall it's a nice little sort of system how the fans are done. Just connects into your SATA cable. If you don't have a 3-pin 5-volt addressable ARGB header on your motherboard, you don't need to connect that with this setup either, if I didn't say that. Just so you know, so if you do have a very old motherboard or just an older motherboard that doesn't have that header, then you can still use this case fine. You just connect in the SATA cable for your SATA power, and then you're well away just to use the system as is, and then just use your little LED button at the front here to change your LEDs and your colours for your fans. And overall, I do think for £45, Ions have actually done not a bad little job here. This looks like a nice, tidy, modern case. Certainly, I would say quite ideal for flipping at £45. That's kind of that. It's in that sort of price point, isn't it, for flipping cases? I mean, ideally, you probably would like it down to about 35 or 40, but I think at 45, it's still not bad value, especially as you do get the 4 ARGB fans pre-installed, which is a good plus. And you do get the front mesh at the front as well, so that's obviously another good plus. And I can't really see many downsides. I mean, the PSU shroud window I don't like, but I'm willing to let that go. That's not a major issue. Overall, I can't really see many problems with this case, and I think even the cable management at the back there, I think it looks okay and certainly workable. I mean, thankfully this channel does give you a lot more extra room, so that's going to be fine for your big ATX 24-pin cable. So I would highly recommend that you route it in that channel so you can get that extra space. And overall, I think that's the video really, so please leave a like if you like the video. Please comment on what you think of this little case, and would you use this for a flip build or even your own personal build. And please subscribe to see my future videos, and as always guys, I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.